Okay. All right. So welcome everybody. We're excited to be hosting as part of our Youth Environmental Summit, a community collaboration in our watersheds, Ask an Expert midday chat. So we've invited some fun folks from our community who all represent the very best of the environmental work that's happening here. I'm Erica Seward with Yuba Land Trust, joined with Erin Tarr, and together we are the co-executive directors of the organization. We're super excited about today's conversation as it's on Earth Day, which 30 years ago, Yuba Land Trust was founded on this very day. So it's extra special for our organization, and I'd like to just kind of go around this virtual room here and invite each of you to introduce yourselves and speak a little bit about your mission before we get into projects and some topics of discussion. So how about we start with Greg?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Thrush. I work with the SYRCL Fund. We are a small environmental nonprofit organization located in Nevada City. Our mission is to restore environmental community resilience to the Sierra Nevada. Our projects are wide. We are primarily well known for working on dealing with the legacy issues of mining and mitigating the effects of mining, historical mining effects in our community. We do I work as an environmental justice community organizer. I work with the community to work on issues of water quality, access and quality, and as well as trying to help the community get more fire adapted and work on resiliency in that area. We do a variety of environmental projects around mine, headwater source, mercury source reduction, and meadow restoration, and things that help environment become healthier and more resilient.
Great. Chris, how about you?
Hi, I'm Chris Friedel, and I'm the executive director of the Yuba Watershed Institute. And we were also founded 30 years ago, although we haven't made any fanfare about that. But the organization was founded by just a group of concerned citizens up on the San Juan Ridge that were wanted to have a say in how the public lands in their neighborhoods were managed. And so the community approached the BLM, and the BLM kind of put it back on the community and said, if you guys are interested, why don't you come up with a plan for how these lands should be managed? And that was the birth of the Intimum Forest, which is our main project right now. And it's a 100-acre, it's 1,000 acres of public land managed by the BLM in partnership with the community through the Yuba Watershed Institute. And the model's been really successful. We've raised a bunch of money in recent years to do comprehensive forest management plan for the property, and also do forest health and climate resilience treatments on the forest lands. And the model's been so successful that we're starting to implement it in other parts of the county, most notably at Round Mountain and along the Little Deer Creek watershed. So yeah, I think our actual official mission is we're a group of concerned citizens advocating for the preservation of biodiversity and sustainable use of natural resources in the Yuba watershed.
How about our friends from SYRCL?
Sure, I can kick us off. So my name is Ray. I'm the River Education Manager for the South Yuba River Citizens League. And we work to protect and restore our incredible Yuba watershed, as so many of these other wonderful colleagues are also doing incredible work to do the same. Interestingly, SYRCL was founded also around 30 years ago. You know, back in the early 80s, there was just a scrappy group of grassroots organizers who heard there was going to be a dam built on the South Yuba, and started having meetings in one of the founders' garages to try to figure out how to protect this incredible treasure that is the Yuba River. And long story short, all their hard work and that idea of, you know, the work of a few can be a incredible impact. All that hard work resulting in the work with many other partners to have the Yuba River designated as a wild and scenic river, meaning that it is protected from that kind of building or that kind of impact, and is meant to be what it is, wild and scenic. So 30 years later, we now do all kinds of incredible work with restoration of our meadows, maintaining and monitoring the water quality and the groundwater quality. We also work on mitigating the impacts of mining. We do quite a bit of work throughout the watershed for the health of our forests, the health of our meadows, the health of the river. We also offer educational programs. So we're just very grateful and excited to be doing this work at this pivotal time, and to be in collaboration with so many amazing partners here. So I'll forward to Shannon and look at a bit of her work with SYRCL too.
To have a
All right.
30-year party.
Yeah.
My name's Shannon Hedge. I am the Education Outreach Coordinator at SYRCL. I'm also one of the AmeriCorps members for this year. Many of the organizations that are on now have either historically had AmeriCorps members through the same program that I work for, or do currently have them. And so I'm only here for a while, but I work really closely with Ray and help out with the education programs and do a lot of work with our outreach programs as well.
Great. Lily, were you going to say a few words?
So I work at Sierra Streams Institute. I am the water quality lab and tier manager. Years ago, and we were established in 1995, so 20 years or so. And we started as a group of citizens who were concerned about the Pine Street Bridge being reconstructed. And so some water quality monitoring began, and it has very slowly over time grown. So we have 2 monitoring programs currently, one on Deer Creek and one on Bear River. Bear River we've been doing for about 4 or 5 years now. In addition to our water quality monitoring, which is done entirely by citizen scientists and myself, we also do a lot of restoration work throughout the Deer Creek and Bear River watersheds, and we have a pretty large and actively growing education program as well, and we work with schools throughout the watershed. And yeah, I think that's our brief summary for now. We'll get into our projects and stuff more in a little bit.
Great. And Josie, we're glad that you were able to get that link and join us here as a contributor. So do you want to share more? Oh, and if you unmute yourself, we can hear you. There you go.
So I'm Josie Crawford. I'm the executive director of the Wolf Creek Community Alliance, and our organization has been around since 2004 officially, and they started really getting together over ice cream, I guess, in 2002. And that was in response to a large number of sewage spills coming out of the Grass Valley wastewater treatment plant. And so a group got together to see what they could do about that, and then other things. It's a very small watershed, but very heavily impacted by the hard rock gold mines in town. So we have two of the largest, most health old mines in Grass Valley. So we have a lot of work, a lot of legacy mining issues, and we have a big robust monitoring program that's been going the entire time. We have a stewardship program. We host the annual Know Your Watershed program. And we have very little staff. I'm the only staff person and I'm just half-time, but so it's completely dependent on volunteers. So we are very lucky to have a good set of volunteers.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll get into projects later.
Okay. And now I'm going to throw it to Erin on behalf of Yuba Land Trust.
Thanks, Erica. So my name's Erin Tarr. I am the other co-executive director at Yuba Land Trust. I have been here for about 9 years now. So I started as director and now co-executive director. So I have a lot of intimate knowledge of our lands and our trails that we are responsible for. So our mission is to protect and defend the natural and working lands within the Bear and Yuba River watersheds, and to empower a healthy, resilient community through nature access and education. So the main things that we do land conservation. So we do that through acquiring conservation easements on private land. We also purchase land in fee title, and then we work with our trail program through trail easements on private property, and we also build a lot of trails on the lands that we own. And then, the restoration work that we do, we look to partner with a lot of these other great organizations to do restoration and research on those lands.
Getting into the conversation topic today with collaboration, I'd like to kind of speak or just kind of open it up to the group a little bit in terms of the times that we're currently in and what we're facing with the urgent need to protect and restore our natural resources and ensure a healthy watershed or watersheds for not only our community, but for the rest of the state that does benefit as downstream constituents through water supply and land integrity. How about we talk about how work is furthered through collaboration, and if there's any specific examples that you all can speak to about being a part of a strong integrated community that is connected and supporting each other. Who'd like to start? Chris, there you go. Jump right in there.
Yeah, so the Yuba Watershed Institute is also very small. Right now it's just me and one other person, and as far as staff members go, we will be hiring, hopefully, although the COVID thing kind of puts everything on hold, or at least things are a little more difficult right now. But I guess where I'm going with that is that, being a small organization, I think collaboration is critical. And there's things that we couldn't do without the support of other organizations. And, we're partnering with the Land Trust on a few projects right now, where the Land Trust is kind of providing us some crucial connections to landowners in the neighborhood who want to do conservation on their property through conservation easements. And we're also partnering with the Sierra Streams Institute right now to come up with a forest management plan in the Little Deer Creek watershed. And we're blessed in this community with like such a high percentage of nonprofits per capita or watershed groups per capita. And I think, we could be stepping on each other's toes, but I think instead what I see is a lot of great, interfacing and collaboration and the recognition that these challenges are so big that not one organization can tackle them on their own. We all need to be working together and kind of steering in the right direction. And, we're really focused on fire risk reduction and neighborhood safety, and doing that in a really ecologically sensitive way. And need a lot of partner people in order to have that happen.
Josie, if you could speak about Know Your Watershed Week and the major efforts that were put into that as an organizer and bringing together so many organizations around a common mission. Maybe you could touch on the work that was required and the folks involved.
Okay, so about, I guess it was 3 years ago, we started, maybe actually 4 years ago, we started organizing the first Know Your Watershed Week, and then after that it became Know Your Watershed Month. We had about 30 organizations participating, environmental organizations in 3 major watersheds, the Yuba, the Bear, and the American River watersheds. And this was a huge collaborative event, or a set of events. So each organization put on provide experience or put on an educational event for the public. And we had a really wide range of walks and talks and stewardship events, fundraisers. The idea was to get people out in their watershed and learning something about it. So that, of course, was supposed to be April, and that went down down the tubes. But we hope to keep it going. We also we collaborate with SYRCL and SSI doing our water quality monitoring data. We combine it, and it's all going to be in one database in the next month or so, I think. And we work with them on every aspect of our monitoring program. So that's pretty cool to do that. And we work with Yuba Land Trust quite a bit on the Wolf Creek Trail, and we've been working on a restoration plan that everyone in this community helped with, bringing their expertise to projects that we want to work on in our watershed. And then yeah, the Wolf Creek Trail has really been a big asset. That was a Yuba Land Trust project, and we've got all kinds of people wanting to do special projects down there, and it's really been fun to be part of that project. So.
Well, Erin, do you want to jump in on the Wolf Creek Trail then, since we're talking about that, and we'll move around still in collaboration with everyone else?
Yeah, the Wolf Creek Trail in particular, that was just such an awesome community collaboration. From what seemed impossible, now it's become just this asset that we see blocking more than ever, you know. So I mean, we certainly shouldn't take most of the credit there. That was the city, you know. So Tim Keyser and his leadership in the city really put that together and brought us in for you know, recommendations. We've built a lot of spur trails that connect people to the creek and get better access there. But yeah, I would say, I mean, that's a great community collaboration project. There's just been so many, and from the Land Trust perspective, we have a staff of about 9 people, but we have so much responsibility. You know, we own 4,000 acres of land. We have 12,000 acres of conservation easements that we're responsible for. We have 45 miles of trail. So we're really focused on managing those responsibilities and then moving forward with new projects to protect more watershed lands. So the collaborations with grants, like with Yuba Watershed Institute and Little Progress too, that's a huge benefit for the whole community. That's a very fire-prone area. We have a lot of conservation easements up there and trail easements. We own some land, but we don't have the capacity to pull something like this off. And YWI has this close relationship with BLM. SSI has a lot of research and scientific data collection experience. So those kind of collaborations are just crucial to really protect our community and move these things along. We're talking right now with, you know, Sierra Fund and the mining remediation they're able to do. There's a project with an endangered species where it's on a abandoned mine site, and, you know, how can we work together to see this property protected, see these species protected? So everybody plays a critical role, and, like, you know, Chris pointed out, their focus is community fire management in an ecological way. I think we all have our strengths, and when strengths are really make great changes in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. On the SYRCL side of things, is there anything that you both could speak to regarding the watershed coordinators, as well as the advocacy efforts around a healthy and resilient watershed?
Absolutely. So just two examples come to mind as far as some of the advocacy and the watershed health go. It's really fascinating, and this might be a little bit cheesy, but when I think about, how biodiversity is the key to a healthy watershed, I think about the diversity of all the different organizations or companies or institutes that we each respectively, SSI and Yuba Watershed Institute collaborate with, and it just, you see these outcomes, these projects, these community treasures in diversity. So I just think that that's a really powerful thing to kind of start with. And to begin with, as far as watershed health goes, one of our biggest projects, and that's one of our newest projects, is actually our North Yuba Forest Partnership and North Yuba Forest Initiative. So we actually partner with a group of 9 organizations that are passionate about forest health and the resilience of North Yuba forests and the North Yuba watershed. And we work with organizations like the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan Tribe, and the nonprofit that represents them, the California Heritage Indigenous Research Project. We work with the Forest Service, we work with Yuba Water Agency, and a myriad of others to ensure that, our water supplies are protected. We're reducing the risk of really high severity wildfires. We're thinning out smaller kind of tinder-like trees in order to make space for the ones that are older and have that kind of resilience to them. So when you think about 275,000 acres of forest that you want to protect, you have to have that kind of collaboration. You have to have that kind of partnership in order to really not only protect these incredible forests, but create jobs from these opportunities and, protect each one of the resources as far as water goes, as far as the forests go. So to me, that's one of the most, I think, incredible collaborations that I've gotten to witness in the community from the SYRCL end of things in a long time. And then secondly, when we offer, which I think Shannon will get into in a bit, we offer educational rafting trips down the lower Yuba to see endangered salmon make their journey back up from the Pacific. And that in and of was an opportunity for these fish that are a keystone species. But we've also collaborated with Yuba Water Agency and Tiker, which is an aggregate or a company that takes all this sediment that has been just, spread out over the landscape from unsustainable mining practices from a long time ago. And not only do they help take that aggregate out and turn it into our roads, turn it into our highways, which is also making a more balanced floodplain for trees to grow and then for the fish to have more increased food supply. But Yuba Water Agency is also thinking about how restoring that part of the habitat will increase, our water security, will increase our water quality security. So they're investing in these tours to, connect the next generation of stewards to this incredible, landscape that really needs a lot of restoration. So it's just fascinating how partners, really step up and really enhance, our ability to protect the watershed. So those are some of the pieces I think that, in terms of advocacy, we also work with them to ensure that our rivers are protected from future dams, whether it's the Bear River, because, with the South Yuba, that isn't as pressing of an issue. We also work with the Riverkeeper and Waterkeeper Alliance to make sure that the Environmental Protection Agency doesn't roll back regulations on the Clean Water Act. So, I think we'll get more into those particulars later, but I just see all of the incredible collaboration that happens on a variety of our different projects, and we would never be able to do it without that kind of partnership. So it's just it's a really powerful time to be collaborating.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg, could you speak to vulnerable communities and some of the lens that you look through, and the work with the Sierra Fund, and how collaboration is key to being more inclusive?
Sure. We have many different projects that go into different areas. I'll speak about what I do. The water issues were the original entry point for me into working in our community. We wanted to make sure that people who traditionally don't participate in decision making about water access and quality came to the table, and we have a very vibrant integrated regional water management area called CABI, and we have spent a fair amount of energy talking to different community members, some niches within our areas like mobile home parks and small communities that are very isolated, like the town of Washington, to try to bring them into the decision-making process, and also to apply for funding to have water infrastructure projects included in CABI so that they could potentially be funded. I also have worked with people in apartment complexes, just kind of wanting to know what their issues and needs were. And early on, I started working with the Sierra Fund about 2.5 years ago, and well, actually, no, it's getting more to be about 3. People were very concerned about fire, and this is kind of as our understanding is emerging. And so I, being that, just wanting to listen to what community were, they started to feed back this information to everybody I work with. And it was at the same time that the community itself was beginning to understand more clearly the urgency of that, and thinking about ways to become more fire adapted, more on top of understanding how to respond well in being a fire adapted community area where we live. So I started to make presentations to disadvantaged communities in our area about what was going on in our areas, what the county was doing, what the fire departments were doing, just all the information that I was gathering in my connections with people and collaborations with all the other entities that are working on this. And so I started just being a education organ, going out, presenting people what were happening, and also to try to get them to get more involved in home hardening and thinking about evacuation preparation, emergency preparation, that kind of thing. What else? That's kind of what I've been doing mostly. So I'll stop there.
Okay. So Chloe, you get to tackle 2 questions here, because we're going to launch into why we're all here today is about sharing our projects, and then also kind of the future of our community in general, and how we are fostering a spirit of collaboration, but then also stewardship as well. So could you speak to what's happening with Sierra Streams Institute and the new education initiative, or the large grant funds that you all were able to secure, and then some of the citizen science work that you're doing?
Totally. So the Our Forest program is our large National Science Foundation grant that we just received in the fall of 2019. We are in the pilot and design stages of it right now. Unfortunately, the virus kind of hindered our actual pilot with students that was supposed to happen this spring, but we're still developing curriculum and hoping to be able to trial it out in the fall. So it's designed to get 3rd through 5th graders outside collecting viable forest health and fire risk data. And basically, we're working on making it so that that data can actually be used by scientists. We don't want the kids just going out and collecting nonsense data that they don't feel has any value to the world. Because we think it's very important for anyone to know that the effort they're putting into something is being used. That's what we really encourage with our citizen science folks involved. Currently piloting that with the Nevada City School of the Arts, Williams Ranch, Cottage Hill, and Grizzly Hill. And by the end of all of this, which is about a 3-year project, we'll have worked with about 1,000 students on it. So we'll be working with kids throughout the watershed. So we're really excited about that and hoping we'll get to do some outside piloting once everything kind of settles down. And then as for our citizen science projects, we have an infinite amount that happen, but our most regular ones are our water quality monitoring program. We have about 40 monthly volunteers that come every single month. They each have their own site on either Deer Creek or Bear River, and they go out and collect nitrate, phosphate, bacteria, conductivity, turbidity, all those fun water quality parameters for us. And then they bring them back to the lab where either myself or other citizen science volunteers process them and get to kind of finish that cycle, which is pretty neat. And in October, and so we have a small group of very committed volunteers that come weekly, if not more, to count out every single bug that we are collecting and then identify it. So that takes a lot of patience and time and effort, but it gives us really good data on stream health. So that's another regular project that we work on and has been going on for the close to 20 years that we've been doing this monitoring.
Well, we all love data, right? So raise your hand if you like data. Who has any fun data sharing that they'd like to put out there, different projects that they're working on that they can highlight?
Can I jump in really quick with one more thing with that data? As Josie mentioned, SYRCL and Wolf Creek Community Alliance and us are combining all of our data into this river database online that everyone will have access to. And with collaboration, Rescue Ecologist Jeff Lauder is working on a long-term climate change study using that data. So we're really excited to finally be having this like intense data sharing opportunity that we can actually put this years and years of data to good use.
That's really awesome. I know that's been talked about for years, so that's awesome you guys are doing it.
So who wants to share some more on the data front projects in the works?
I can talk briefly about our Beaver Dam analog project, where, I mean, data, there's not a whole lot of data collection yet, but we're just in the initial phases. So we received a grant from the Wildlife Conservation Board to restore Little Wolf Creek, which is on our Garden Bar Preserve that's located down on the Bear River. The project will restore and in the process, we had out Swiftwater Design, which is a contractor that does these Beaver Dam analogs across the state on large ranches. Once he got out to the site and saw Little Wolf Creek and was able to really walk the whole length of it, he was so excited with what he found, because he found there was much more potential than what we had actually written into the grant. So over this winter, him and his crew, they were able to get out there for about 5 days, camped out on site and installed these enormous structures. Some of them are really big structures. Some of them are just one rock dams. There's about 45 structures now in that creek. And they finished up the day before one of our last major storms. So they were really able to be tested, put to the test. Immediately, we were out there doing some of the work with them, and we saw back channels being restored, water. These channels were reconnecting to the main channels. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service involved in all, and this back channel habitat is some of the best habitat to be restored. And so we're really excited about what the outcomes may be. And on that site, we've also been working with Point Blue Conservation Science through their Rangeland Watershed Initiative program to do carbon sampling in the soil, bird surveys and vegetation surveys. So that'll be an ongoing data collection process. We're planning to, we're hoping to get a Healthy Soils Program grant this year where we can apply compost onto the rangeland and then continue to monitor the carbon sequestration rates. So yeah, that's a pretty exciting project that we're all looking forward to seeing the results to.
Greg, did you have any projects? I believe I had seen one where it was measuring air quality and focused on the health aspects or impacts of climate change.
Yeah, I'm in the process of creating a cleaner air strategy document for Nevada County. And as part of that, we did some facility surveys in the area. We asked managers of various buildings about how they are impacted by air quality, and also what kinds of capabilities they have to filter air in the case of bad quality air events that would result from, say, wildfire smoke. I am just in the process of kind of data entering and summarizing that. I don't have any thing to share about that, but wanted to mention a couple of other things that are being done at the Sierra Fund that I'm not involved with, but our scientists are. We have a project going on with NID to measure sediment and various things related to dredging or trying to removing sediment from the dam. And one of our scientists, Nick, has been put together a real-time monitoring station there that allows for NID and us to kind of see how turbidity and oxygen levels and things like that change over the cycle of the season, and how it affects the capabilities to transport of various things. We're primarily interested in mercury. So then there is also a project going on in Clover Valley up in Lassen, which is also a field, a meadow restoration project, and similar to what Aaron was mentioning, including carbon sequestration. I'm not the scientist, so I'm not completely filled in on that, but we are collecting a lot of data in that realm as well. And what else? We're also working with Tahoe National Forest and trying to identify mine sites in the forest land, and are working with, they have some really amazing LiDAR data that they've shared with us, and we are working with them to kind of figure out which of the landscape features in their forests are actually old mines, and trying to create a list of prioritizing mine sites that could be worked on and to hopefully mitigate mercury runoff.
So Chris, I have a question for you about the relevance of data. For anyone that's watching this, why do you think, or what is it about data that actually we can derive and base kind of our work off of?
Yeah, I actually was just thinking about this yesterday. I think when we talk about forest health treatments, there can be an attitude of, well, we already know what we need to do. Like we know we need to thin our forests. We know we need to go in and reintroduce prescribed fire. And so I think sometimes there can be an attitude of, well, we don't really need to do a lot of research or a lot of monitoring. What we really need to do is increase pace and scale and just focus on project implementation. And I think that really does a disservice to the work that we're doing. And I'll give you guys one example. We just took down a dead beetle-killed trees on one of the BLM parcels up on the ridge. And it created this huge pile where all the logs were kind of like on top of each other. And so me and the BOM fuels manager, we were kind of scratching our heads like, well, okay, so we took the trees down. They're not going to fall on the road, which is good. But now they're creating this huge fire hazard. And we don't have enough money to pull them out and grind them and make them into chips, or the biomass plants aren't taking any more material right now. So what are we going to do? So we decided to bring in a really giant masticator and just kind of grind the logs in place. So it's kind of like the least bad option, but as far as I know, I don't know anyone who's really done that kind of treatment before. So what are the effects? Now we have, up to a foot of chips in some areas. What's going to be the effect on, the future forest there? We know we're probably not going to see any ponderosa pine recruitment because of the ponderosa bill. But also, what's it going to do for water retention? What's it going to do for, how fast are those chips going to break down? Is this really a treatment that we want to be recommending to other people? So there's just a lot of questions out there still. So I think I personally need to remind myself, and I think also the funders would do well to remind themselves that there's still a place for research, even though we really do need to do this implementation on such a large scale. That said, we're a small organization. We don't really necessarily have the resources to do big research studies. So I'm definitely always looking for ways to collaborate and bring other people, academic researchers, into our projects. We haven't successfully done that yet, but I'm always looking for those opportunities.
Those are all really good points. Ray and Shannon, could you talk, there's a question here talking about public safety and how data is a good way to sort of capture outdoor recreation, people out and about on the river and enjoying this amazing, our amazing natural resources around us that we are all working to protect and restore. Could you speak to the River Ambassador program and the data that is derived from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those unfamiliar, the River Ambassador program essentially is a group of volunteers that we collaborate with state parks on this and go down to the major river crossings on the Yuba and kind of post up and spread friendly news, I guess, more or less about different regulations and how to be safe when you're recreating. We also collect data. We're down different than a lot of what other people have talked about. We collect data on how much trash is collected while our river ambassadors are down there talking to people and walking around collecting trash. Collect data on dog poop that we pick up as well, how many visitors we interact with, how many people we see down there. It's through the rise of social media and whatnot, the Yuba has become ever so popular because people post beautiful photos of it, and it's a beautiful river, but we just want people to stay safe and be able to protect the environment that we live in. And it's roughly 800,000 visitors every year that come to swim or just recreate along the Yuba, which is a lot. Most of them are not local. And I think over the history of the River Ambassador program, we've talked to probably 50,000 people for face-to-face interactions. And about 60% of those are not locals. And so a lot of us locals here want to protect our beloved Yuba and whatnot, and want to not litter and to really just like kind of not bring glass, not set fires or anything like that. But sometimes people from out of the area just aren't aware. And so having those numbers and the data that we collect while river ambassadors are down there make it ever more powerful when we're able to speak to people on being safe in the Yuba River and recreating safely and being able to really protect the natural resources that we have down there, even if you're not from the area.
Well, we have just about 10 plus minutes left. And so I'd like to kind of open it up to sort of the present day, looking at the present day and what we're kind of all dealing with now with COVID-19, but then also, you know, wildfire season is upon us, and we all know what we experienced last year with PSPS as well. And looking through the lens of community resilience and challenges and opportunities that we see as a community now and in the future. I'd love to give you all maybe like a minute or so to throw out what you think those might be, and starting with challenges, but then most immediately opportunities for change and what we can all work on together. So obviously this is you can represent yourself or the organization in this capacity, but would love to hear your thoughts on that. So Josie, would you like to start?
So we just got a grant just about a few weeks ago to put on some community workshops to address climate change resiliency. And that's supposed to be a collaborative effort involving a lot of you or your organizations. And so we're going to be looking at, well, I think some of the biggest challenges that we're looking at are catastrophic wildfire. I mean, I know there's some people don't think that is part of climate change, but I still do. Drought, and what else? There's so many things, air quality. And so the idea is to give people some tools to make small changes at home, to make a large collective difference, and then also to look at things we can do as a community to become more resilient problem face. So that's one thing. Yeah, turn it over to the next person.
Okay, who's next?
I'll jump in on that. I think kind of what Josie's saying, one of our biggest challenges is going to be balancing fear and like human security with the knowledge that our region's ecological history is strongly rooted in fire. So it's definitely going to take like the community recognizing as a whole that we need to look as like at our community as a landscape scale and less of in our own backyard scale. If we're able to keep intensity of fire low by doing all these great fuels reduction projects, I think we'll not only keep ourselves safe, but also improve ecological resiliency of our area. And I think the biggest opportunity we have is we have so many amazing environmental in this property to partner with state and federal agencies on all the land surrounding us, that if we're able to collaborate well and really bring ourselves together as a community, that we can kind of be a great model community for conservation success. So I think we have a huge opportunity for that. And with that, we also have an amazing community of individuals who are intelligent and motivated and are actively participating. So we have so many volunteers. It like blows my mind every day that we have 50 regular volunteers coming every month that are so committed. And most of our community is made up of folks like that. So that is our biggest opportunity, I think, is just using those people and continuing the work we're doing.
Great. Craig.
I can jump in. As all of us have been reflecting the last month plus about the impact of COVID, I think although it's just been a really challenging time for all of us, I also just feel like it is an opportunity and has been. Like I've just been watching the people that I know respond and how as a community, really people are just stepping up and paying attention to each other. Like I notice when I take my walk in the afternoon and I see people, it's like strangers, we acknowledge each other. You know, there's just this awareness that we really do share this world. And sometimes we forget that. But I think that what's been happening recently, and then I think the power safety shutoffs were also an event like that, where people were like, oh my goodness, yes, we are dependent on things, and it helps us understand a little bit better how we are independent or interdependent. The fire threat is also, I think, an awareness that's growing all of it. And I'm impressed by how we are educating one another. I'm learning tons every day by talking to people, and I'm hopefully also spreading, good words, things that people need to know. But what it makes me realize is all these kind of collective events is that it's making, we use the word resilience a lot, and it's kind of an abstract word a lot of times, but we're actually living through some very real manifestations of it. And I think each time we do this, it's making us more capable and getting more people thinking about it. And ultimately, I think we will all gain a lot out of all of this, and that we are heading in a fabulous direction. And like, I'll echo what other people said, we just live in a pretty amazing community of people, of individuals and organizations that are dedicated to making our lives connected, really.
Yeah.
I look forward to doing that with people.
Absolutely.
I'll jump in. So yeah, what everyone's been saying is right on. I think we have a great opportunity right now to really define what we want as a community. And one thing that the Land Trust has realized in the last year is that food security is something that that is a major issue, and that is something that we really need to be focusing on. So we haven't shifted our focus, but we've expanded our focus to include this new Forever Farms program, where we're collaborating with Sierra Harvest and the Briar Patch to look at our important farmlands and how can we protect those, and how can we provide access to farmers to land long term, so they can have long term leases, they can have ownership, and variety. When we're talking about community resilience, that's one big piece of it, is this food security for everyone. A challenge, I think, is definitely going to be public support and funding. I mean, when we're talking about, we have all these great nonprofits in our community that are doing such great work, and how is COVID going to impact our public support, and how are we going to support each other through, if we're focused more on grant funding, then how can we figure out how to partner and keep everyone, all of our organizations healthy. And we know that we're all needed here in this community. So just really coming together and continuing these conversations. I mean, just seeing everyone here and being able to talk in this way is really, really, really helpful. So thank you all.
Absolutely. We have a couple more minutes left. Who wants to jump in here?
I'll say some. Yeah, I think it's very uncertain times right now in terms of like how we get our work done. And I think during the last financial crisis, we saw a lot of nonprofits in the community really shrink down or have trouble. And I'm really hopeful that some of the work will continue on. I feel like in California, our state and our governor has really made a commitment towards certain things that we all believe in and are working on. The biggest example probably being just the amount of money committed towards helping communities become more fire resilient. It's really become a priority issue. And I think the real opportunity there is to really, for us all to be thinking about how does that translate to our communities economically? Can we actually build local labor forces that are implementing some of this work? I know as an organization hiring crews that are coming in from outside of the county to do a lot of work, just because there isn't the availability of folks around here. But I personally really would love to see there become a local economy around land stewardship. Maybe it doesn't all have to be funded by the state, but maybe there's other creative ways to make sure that happens. But yeah, it's a big opportunity.
Yeah, I'll jump in with that and say that if collectively we're all working together to draw investments in, or that focus on not only the work at hand, but how economically we are, churning the engine and creating more jobs or stability within the workforce itself. That's going to be likely a shift in focus. We work pretty closely with the Sierra Business Council, which I'm realizing is not on this call, but they are a voice for us in Sacramento and the state capital, talking about rural communities and why investments in rural communities are so needed, especially those like ours that are rich in resources. And so, if a wildfire or some other catastrophic event happens and it compromises our ability to manage the land and the resources at hand, as well as providing resources for our people, then what's left and how does that impact those throughout the rest of the state. So those are all really valid points. We're nearing the end here, and Ray has her hand raised, so we'll kind of leave it to you, I guess, with some parting final words.
Well, I am so grateful to be a part of this, and I think, as we're having this conversation about, what are the challenges that we're facing as a community, but oftentimes I find that the biggest opportunities are where you experience, that challenge and those growth edges. And so, for all of, our young leaders and our young activists and stewards and that might be seeing this, I would just invite you, whether it's on the short term, maybe not even short term, but in this current context of COVID where we're, sheltering in place and at home, or in the longer term when we are able to come back together in person, I would just invite you to find what it is that you're passionate about and act from that place. If you're passionate about the arts, make environmental art to share on the virtual level. If you're passionate about, the political side of things, make some calls, write some letters. If you're passionate about field work, get connected with me. One amazing citizen science, and when the time comes, you can get out there and help collect data. If you're passionate about field work, get involved with us at SYRCL, Yuba Land Trust, Sierra Fund, all of these incredible groups, and help learn how restoration really happens in the field. Protecting the river, get involved with river ambassadors, Shannon in May. Whether that's sharing stuff on social media about, hey, let's not go to the river during this time, or maybe we're able to go and you help people understand not to bring glass. There's just so many different ways, I think, in which we can get involved. And I think the ways that tap into our deepest passions and our deepest gifts and the things that we're really excited about are the ones that will really see the change, because they'll be energy giving and we'll share that energy out. So I'm just excited to see, where everyone's passions take them and during this time.
Yay. Well, thank you all for joining today. And I want to remind everyone that there's going to be a notes section for this recording when we're going to be posting it up later on our website at bylt.org. I think it's important that everyone watching realizes that collectively the groups represented here, so Yuba Watershed Institute, South Yuba River Citizens League, Wolf Creek Community Alliance, Sierra Streams Institute, the Sierra Fund, and Yuba Land Trust, we're all working together to make the best that we can happen, our missions being propelled forward through collaborations. And so we encourage you to check out each organization. Web links will be in the notes sections, and your support is greatly appreciated through donations or volunteering your time and energy. So thank you all for joining, and happy Earth Day.
Thank you so much, you guys, for organizing this. It's really great.
Organizing it.
Okay.
Bye.